My name's Scott People, long-time professional in the mostly animation business. I had spent some time in California with Disney and Pixar. I spent some time in mostly all feature animation work, some feature, some TV. Also, I've taught a lot at Sheridan College.
A bit of an animation dinosaur. I've been around since before the Ice Age. I also taught at Sheridan. 40 years experience in all facets of the business. I've done a little of animation, a lot of layout, design, production design, storyboarding, a little bit of background painting, a little bit of animation, a little bit of directing, a little bit of everything. We were roommates at Disney with Scott. I worked in a lot of different television studios. She's an Egyptian cat queen. Can I recommend one thing to you guys, just as a school? Yeah. Don't pitch anything. Nobody explains anything. If I don't understand it, or meaning the viewer, if the viewer doesn't understand it, ask the viewer what they think they're looking at. And then the artist can compare what the difference between what they're looking at. I can see the Egyptian tropes. I can see the cat feet. The costume is Egyptian. So if I'm an art director, I say, aha, can research. Because it communicates. It's got a certain attitude that communicates in the pose and in the drawing. So this is a good character. She doesn't need to tell me that. It's just the drawing communicates. And you want that, right? Storyboard. One of the things, Scott, I think will agree with me, one of the terrible things about pitching boards is, if you've got a board that's incomplete and you're pitching it, and you pitch it to your client, and then your client's going, and particularly if you're very, very personable and you really entertain during your pitch, then the client goes, yeah, I can see that. Okay. But who's making the board? Not you. The client is doing it, because the client's imagining things, because you're giving them a verbal story. Then you draw your board, and then the client goes, well, that's not what we talked about, because you didn't draw it, you described it to him. The client imagined something else, then you went and drew something else. Draw what you want to say. Your story sits in your drawings. If I can't understand it, because you don't have someone in the theater going, well, actually, what we're trying to do in this drawing. So this is a good drawing because it communicates right away. Cat queen with an attitude. So this is a successful design as far as I'm concerned.
So the idea is, I certainly see the story. The guy's in a boat, he's approaching the island. I can tell it's like made of candy, and then he arrives. And obviously it's anticipating a big feast, and then the sea serpent comes out of the water behind him. He's discovered that he's made of candy as well. Just pure composition and cutting from one scene to another. I find scene 3 and scene 4, believe it or not, are very similar. If you look at the big sort of the general curve of the serpent, it's practically the same in both scenes, even though, in one the head is big and in the other one the head is small. And, we've got the raccoon close to us and far away. In a way, you've got the same shot twice.
Also, the scale is off. The hand of the serpent is bigger than the entire possum, and then in the other picture, the hand of the serpent is the same size, is a little smaller than the possum's head.
Just remember that you guys are you're trying to cover a lot of bases. Like storyboarding, it's about story. And generally, a lot can be forgiven in the drawing. If I'm looking at story, a storyboard, I'm not worried about scale. I'm not worried about perspective. And all those are all layout things. I'm interested in clearly seeing what is the story, what's the relationship between the two characters, what's the emotion that character is feeling in that frame, all that kind of stuff. So and then you get into there is an aspect of story, especially in TV production, where you are making the layout, and all that other stuff has to be done, including the continuity. That's the other thing, making sure that your cuts are working and making sure that all the bases are covered.
The one thing that I would just recommend, my 2 cents is, if you can do it, draw what you mean. Draw it as well as you can. The better you draw, the clearer your story will be. And if you can, why not be disciplined? And Scott says that he doesn't care about drawings. Look at one of Scott's storyboards. Everything is bang on. The perspective is bang on. The characters are bang on. like Scott says that, but Scott's boards, if you ever look at them, are just almost perfect. Look at the table. The table is about just above the character's knee, and the average table hits you about just below the crotch. So it's a miniature table. But I would recommend, before you dive into the detail, I would recommend that you take a real room like that. Look at the architecture of it, and then work within the real architecture. I would just study the architecture a little bit more, because this right here, the doorway, and there's just some vague bits. And again, like Scott said, look at the Dalmatian drawings.
No, overall, I mean, you've done a good job. The drawing itself is pretty good. The line weight, the line quality. I wish I could be more specific. I would do something with the lid. I think if you could even take the lid away. I mean, it's a fun thing. You've done a great job drawing it.
Is you have to arrange shapes to tell the story, and I would say that I can tell that you're a person that is drawn to detail more than sort of overall structure. So your job now is to sort of work on, when you work a room or a landscape, make it so that you can understand you can understand the space and scale. Because if you project the standing figure over to the bookcase, the top of his head is at the bookcase. There's just odd sort of optical illusion. So for you is to research the architecture of a room, and you'll make it plausible, and hold off on the detail till you've arranged the structure to your satisfaction. Then put the detail in. You're rushing to detail too quickly, I think, and I think that'll serve you well if you work on structure a little more.